I'd like to talk about how the FCI fellowship has been helpful to my research. Um, we think best when we think with others, and I prefer to work my ideas out with other scholars before putting paper to pen or fingers to type pad, as the case may be. My very first publication appeared in Philosophical Studies when I was a graduate student back in 2013. In my current paper, titled The Epistemic Moral Dilemma in Racialized Societies, is a continuation of this project. Here's a dilemma that people in racially structured societies face. Since race structures society, playing roles that race should not play, it's irrational to ignore information. This is an epistemic claim, a claim about our knowledge. But encoding racial information seems to open us up to implicit bias, likely reinforcing unjust power structures. So morally, we shouldn't encode racial information. As I put the point almost 10 years ago, we can either be rational or we can be moral, but you can't be both. The last 10 years have seen several attempts to try to resolve this problem, and I don't think any of them work. My project was to say why they don't work and then put forward my own virtue theory solution. Thus far, I've presented the paper at a virtual conference and worked through 2 drafts with my mentor, Ron Mallon from Washington University. And I submitted the paper to Philosophy and Phenomenological Research and Ergo, unfortunately rejected from both without comments. I'll share 2 ways that this fellowship has been extremely helpful, especially the connection with Ron. So first of all, Ron sent his paper on to his colleague, Alan Hazlitt, who runs a paper workshop at WashU, and he kindly invited me to come. 15 philosophers read my paper in advance, and for roughly 2.5 hours, the group asked me questions about the paper. They offered criticism, and they made suggestions about how to move it forward to publication. The department kindly took me out to dinner as well, and it was fun getting to talk to other philosophers. This connection was really helpful, and it wouldn't have happened without this fellowship. Second, working through drafts led me to a much better paper, and I've actually changed my thesis. In the earliest drafts, I offered my own virtue theory solution to the dilemma, but after working through Ron's comments and subtle criticisms, I came to realize that on virtue account, we're actually stuck with the dilemma as long as racism exists. But I also realized that this is exactly as a virtue theorist would have it. According to virtue theorists, the flourishing of the individual is tied to the flourishing of society. But as many contemporary feminist virtue theorists have pointed out, saying how these two are connected, the flourishing of the individual and the flourishing of society, is actually really, really hard. And a lot of them have given up on that project altogether. There's a real worry that virtue theory becomes egotistic here. My paper fills in the connection. In an unjust society, you have to choose between epistemic and moral virtues, and virtues are a necessary condition on a flourishing life. This isn't what I thought that I would argue when I set out on this project a year ago. This actually wasn't even on my radar. As Ron put the point to me over Zoom, it's like you were going on a journey where you didn't ever arrive at your destination, but you found a wonderful treasure along the way. I thought it was an apt way to put the point. I finished another updated draft, and I'm about to submit the paper to the Journal of the American Philosophical Association. I have a co-authored paper under review at the Journal of Analytic Theology, which I presented in January. And I have an extended abstract that's been accepted for inclusion in an edited volume on the cognitive science of belief. I'll also be presenting some of my more psychological work at the Southern Society for Philosophy and Psychology in March this year. I plan on using my course release time in this second 8 weeks of the spring semester in order to continue reading and working on these projects and submit a couple more of them out for review. Again, this fellowship has been really helpful, not just in terms of the time I have to work on this, but also the connection I've been able to foster with Ron Mallon from WashU. Thank you.